but the entertainment that you just witnessed is the best part of the meeting tonight, I assure you. I've asked Principal Barbara Mall to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will go on with 30 seconds in my district, and if I could start with Ms. Pierce.
Sure. Yes, so on this Friday, the 13th, from 12:30 to 3, Percy Priest Elementary will be celebrating its 60th year anniversary. So we're really excited about this celebration, and I also hope that we don't take another 60 years to get them some capital dollars.
Ms. Fearing.
Thank you. I just want to welcome back the students and teachers and staff and anyone who was able to participate in the vacation that we had last week, spring break, and only 6 more weeks of school.
Ms. Spinkson.
Let me come back. I'm trying to find my notes.
Okay, Ms. Froh.
I wanted to share some good news from Bellevue Middle School, and I see our principal, Mark Pittman, sitting out in the audience tonight. Bellevue Middle this year set some ambitious goals for map testing. They expected 60% of students to meet or exceed their growth goals, and in fact, 64% of students met or exceeded their growth goals in both reading and math. So that's one of the highest in my area. And also this year, Bellevue Middle School reduced discipline incidents by 29% as compared to the last 2 years. So, yeah, thank you.
Dr. Branner.
Yes, I just left NSA, and they are presenting through dance a presentation called Cotton, which is a production that will take you on a journey showcasing the evolution of the oppression of African Americans over time. And they will be having other presentations tomorrow at 8:30 and Friday at 4:30 at Nashville School of the Arts.
Thank you. You ready, Mr. Spinkson?
Yeah, so I've misplaced my notes that I intended to say, so I'm going to kind of break protocol here with apologies, Dr. Brannon. I just wanted to give a shout out to the students at Overton High School, which is in her district. I'm part of the Overton cluster, but I'm also an Overton alum. On March 14th, they demonstrated great courage in showing their First Amendment rights during the walkout to protest and show support for the students in Parkland, Florida. So kudos to the kids at Overton. Go Bobcats.
Thank you. Ms. Bugs?
Yes. This past Tuesday, I had the absolute pleasure of hosting a day on the Hill with my intern, Dawn Effie, and I. She's a 10th grade student at MLK, and she spent about 5 hours with me just meeting legislators, sitting in on subcommittee meetings, asking me questions, debriefing. So I'm very, very proud of her. Was really excited to do it and look forward to inviting the rest of the district. If you all have some students that would like to do a day on the Hill next year, we look forward to hosting that. But also on Thursday, the Mayor's Art Show will be featuring the Maplewood cluster, and I have quite a few schools in District 5 that will have presentations there. If you've never been to a Mayor's Art Show, it's amazing. It's free. There's a great reception, and you just get to see our students' hard work. They come up with some creative stuff. So if you have time, this Thursday, 5 to 7.
And the Thursday Art Show will also feature the schools from the McGavock cluster. I know McGavock High School and some of the middle schools will be there as well.
And Overton cluster.
Oh, and Overton. I wanted to share some news I was told yesterday. Thank you, JC. The National Association of Elementary School Principals and the Tennessee Principals Association announced yesterday that Shelley Archuleta Smith was the recipient of the National Outstanding Assistant Principal of the Year Award. This is the first year this award has been given. Shelley was nominated and selected by a statewide panel of national distinguished principals, past and present. The award was given to only one assistant principal from the entire state of Tennessee, and she is the assistant principal at Andrew Jackson. So I wanted to say hearty congratulations to her. Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I'm so sorry. I had one more announcement, if you don't mind.
I'll let you.
I appreciate that. Charlottesville High School, if you remember the tragedies that happened in Charlottesville with the race relations, that high school will be coming to Pearlcon this week to do a song for Parkland, Florida. So you should be hearing more about that in the media.
Thank you. We'll move on, and to the good news is our students, and Ms. Spearing, I think you're first
Thank
up.
you. Is Mr. Chris Whitney here? Okay.
Okay, moving on?
All right, let's
Okay, all right. And so we'll move on to the Glencliff High School Student Ambassadors. Mr. Princeton?
Yeah, so I don't have set-up notes here for what it is, but I see Assistant Principal Suzanne Link in the audience, and is Principal Wilson here? Okay, so Suzanne, could you come up and tell us what we're about to see? Go Colts.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Suzanne Link, and I'm the Academy Principal for Medical Science and Research and the interim Academy Coach for Glencliff High School at this time. We were asked to bring some of the best or the highlights of the Academy experience from Glencliff High School, and I bring to you two of my finest, Marita Odwar and Alfonso Fonzie Jones, to speak upon their experiences thus far in the Academies of Nashville at Glencliff High School.
Good evening. My name is Marita Odwar, and I'm a senior at Glencliff High School, and I am in the Academy of Medical Science and Research, and I'm also part of the St. Thomas program. And I'm guessing that you're wondering what the St. Thomas program is. Basically, the St. Thomas program is a program that helps seniors get their certification as to become a medical assistant. And we have taken an exam, and a majority of our class has passed the exam. And I would like to talk about how the Medical Science and Research Academy has benefited me, and the way it had benefited me was the St. Thomas program, because in the St. Thomas program, you will get a job right after high school, even if you don't pass the test. You'll be working as an entry-level position, and which is really good because it helps us pay for our college as well as interacting with patients and get used to how the clinical and hospital staff work. As well as another thing that helped me was the DCI program. Well, not really a program, but internship. I had a DCI internship, and I had a paid internship where I was an intern for the summer, and it also helped me because I was interacting with patients. I understood how the clinical aspects of things happened or handled, and yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Great job.
Hi, I'm Alfonso Fonzie Jones. I'm a part of the Ford Academy of Business and Innovation. And that academy, we focus on a lot on how a business works, what a marketing demographic looks like. The innovation side is that we do a lot of artwork, a lot of digital design through computers creating websites. And the academy has actually benefited me through they helped me create my resume for the jobs that I've applied to and the job that I have now, actually. It's helped me talk to business partners that we have that come for the advisory board meetings. I've actually got one-on-one time with them and have great relationships with them as well. Also, we created 2 businesses at our school. One is called Fruit Blast, where the students are allowed to sell fruit. Well, the business, they're allowed to sell fruit during PLT time, which is, I think, personal planning time, something like that. And they basically, the students, they're $2.50 for fruit cups and fruit parfaits. We also have this business called The Room. It's this VIP service during lunch that students can pay 5 Colts Cash, which is our incentive program there. They can come in, they can eat pizza, they can play video games, they can just chill with their friends. That's really it.
Right. be so cute.
Thought twice.
Thank you. Next, we have Meg's Middle Band, Ms. Bugs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Meg's Magnet Middle School's Wind Ensemble will be performing Sonata in F Major by George P. Telemann, arranged by Gary E. Merritt, and March of Welcome by Mozart, also arranged by Gary E. Merritt. Mr. Franklin J. Norris is in his 10th year as Director of Bands at Meg's Academic Magnet School in Nashville, Tennessee. He serves as Director for the Beginning Band, Concert Band, Wind Ensemble, as well as Intermediate and Advanced Jazz Band. The ensembles at Meg's have been recognized with numerous regional, state, and national accolades. All of the major performance ensembles have earned only superior ratings at Concert Performance Assessment each of the past 9 years. The Wind Ensemble was selected to perform at the 2014 Tennessee Music Educators Association Conference and was named the Grand National Adjudicators Invitational National Junior High School Honor Band in 2016. Mr. Norris received both his Bachelor of Music Education and Master of Music Education degrees from Western Kentucky University.
And the Glencliff artwork, Mr. Pinkston?
Yeah, I like how Glenncliff's controlling the space tonight.
It looks like that.
I didn't set that up or anything. Right. So back on the back wall, there's some beautiful artwork here that was created by young women at Glencliff High School. There's two different types of work represented, pencil self-portraits with ink Zentangle backgrounds, and so this is like one of those moments where I learn something as I'm reading this. Zentangles are a form of mindful abstract drawing created using repetitive patterns. Also, we have several colored pencil drawings of animals that were all created by one senior at Glencliff. These girls who were taught by art educator, these women, excuse me, who were taught by art educators Kimberly DeFries and Samantha Petrie were recently showcased at the Women's History Month celebration. And thank you, Glencliff, for sharing your beautiful art.
Thank God, thank you. We will move on to awards and recognition. Our people. The first group is not here tonight, but the second group we have is Marcus Hampton with McGavock High School. Dr. Joseph?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. We are so proud when an MNPS alumni returns to Metro Nashville Public Schools to not only volunteer, but to truly serve. Marcus Hampton is a graduate of Whites Creek High School and the University of Memphis. In 2014, Mr. Hampton was appointed by his chapter of the Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated to chair a youth mentoring initiative called the Kappa League program at McGavock High School. Now, that program has grown to 63 young men at McGavock High School and expanded to Two Rivers Middle School. They meet every Friday at both schools. The seniors in the program this year have all been accepted to four-year colleges, a junior college, or a trade school, and I think that deserves a round of applause. The program has included outings at sporting events like Top Golf and seeing the movie Black Panther. They also organize voter registration drives, Red Cross drives, and the Second Harvest Food Bank Drive, along with a campus cleanup day. The value of good role models and community support and involvement with our students is simply immeasurable. We're proud to recognize Marcus Hampton for his service to our students and to our community. And at this time, I see we have Principal Robin Wall here, who might like to say some words before we call Marcus up.
As Mr. Hampton comes forward, if he would please, and it's been some time back, one of our counselors, Shamika Beetle Rush, introduced me to Mr. Hampton. She's really the reason why we were able to get this started and get it underway. She made the connection with Mr. Hampton, and it's unbelievable what has happened since these men have come into our school and started working with our students. There are a lot of groups, and I've been around a long time. There's been a lot of groups that have given a lot of lip service to what they say they're going to do, how they tell you they're going to help, what they think they can make happen for your schools, but sometimes it just doesn't ever take place. The gentlemen of Kappa Alpha Psi have been unbelievable in stepping up and doing exactly what they said they would do, and actually much more than what I ever expected. the relationships they have built with the students they've worked with, the time they have spent, the energy they've given. You couldn't ask that of anyone else. This is all strictly volunteer work. And what these men have done for our students, they've set an example. And I'm telling you, today, our students need examples.
Yes, sir.
And the role model and what these men have done and the impact they've made at McGavock High School is second to none. And I hope that they continue to do what they're doing, because now, with them going down and working with Two Rivers, I'm hoping to reap the rewards of that as well. And I can't stand up here and not do this because of all the talk I heard up there. These gentlemen are working with the McGavock High School, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that we're very proud of what's taking place at our school. Mr. Hampton, thank you, and if you would please.
Thank you. I know a lot of my brothers are exhaling because they probably thought I wasn't going to show up. Because when you govern to do things to better the next generation, you don't ask for any accolades. You don't need anyone to pat you on the back. It's that good night's sleep you get because you've done a good job that day.
Amen.
None of the things that we do can be basically put in a binder or a folder and passed out to each one of you all to assess. It's something we do from our heart. And I feel kind of weird standing here by myself. I need my brothers to come forward, because these guys here, without them, without this army. Please stand up. I would be remiss to say this if I didn't say this. Have you ever seen such a good-looking group of men in your life?
All right, now it's time to get off the mic.
Drop the mic.
I want to thank each one of you all for recognizing what we're doing. But most importantly, I want to challenge each one of us in this room to extend what we're doing in your particular community, in your particular neighborhood or church, YMCA, Boys or Girls Club. Because if you want to change what tomorrow looks like, you have to start with those young people that we're working with. Thank you.
I know y'all like taking pictures. Come on.
Hey, Cameo. I don't have anything to vote with. This is not his.
How are you? I'm fine. Good to see you. It's been a long time.
Ice is giving me the cold shoulder.
No, I'm not. I'm late. I'm late. I'm sorry. Frazzle still shaking. Brave at a doctor's appointment. I have to go around here. And traffic was like impossible.
Yeah, so Cameo, I just don't have a plug right here.
Doing it.
You want to reach over to me?
If you don't mind, could I? That's what I'm about to do.
Hang on, do some lip sync.
I'm not sure.
She never comes in and doesn't speak to me.
This is I was nervous. I'm embarrassed.
Here. Christian.
Why am I leaving at 5:15 in the morning?
You know what, this Christian, this thing is so bad, it's not fitting.
Is it dead here?
No, it's not dead.
You got
Come here, come here.
I know, I got some here.
Why don't you do this?
I was just doing it.
Who's the baby?
At home with his dad.
Hey, you can also use this pocket dot.
Okay, it's tight. Baby hers. Y'all have all the good gadgets.
Well, I take that back. That might be like a tie for the best thing that happens at the meeting tonight. we will move on to our public participation tonight, our community, and the board will hear from those persons who have requested to appear at the board meeting. In the interest of time, speakers will be requested to limit remarks to 3 minutes or less, and comments will be timed. We have 3 participants tonight. If you could line up, please. Mary Jo Cram, Dr. Carolyn Baldwin-Tucker, and Eric Huth. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Jo Cram. I'm a teacher at the Academy at Old Cockerell. Today is Equal Pay Day, and so I'd like to talk to you about Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, a bestseller about empowering women in the workplace. When I first read it, I thought it wasn't really relevant to my job as a teacher. But this year, I figured out how teachers can lean in. I volunteered to help solve a problem at my school. Students have been taking U.S. history on the computer and failing the EOC. So I spent my own money to take the praxis test to get certified, and now I teach history for half the day while teaching all of my regular Spanish students the other half. I essentially doubled the number of students I teach, doubled the time I spend on the evenings and weekends preparing lessons. My friends thought I was crazy to volunteer to double my work for the same pay. But I wanted the challenge. I wanted to lean in. I didn't get any extra pay or a fancy title, but I did get a little recognition. My peers voted me Teacher of the Year. Since teachers cannot negotiate our salaries individually, we lean in by joining our union and asking for more collectively. When you look at that MOU, I want you to see several thousand women teachers leaning in. And I want you to imagine yourself in thousands of meetings with individual employees who have asked for raises, laying out the reasons they deserve them, just as I have tonight. Because every Metro teacher has a story just like mine. A story about working hard, making sacrifices, building relationships, getting results. A story about why she deserves more than a 2% raise. We talk a lot about equity here. I'd like to ask the board to think about gender equity tonight. Think about the district's place in our society as an employer of an overwhelmingly female workforce. Think about how the board's decisions about teacher pay contribute to gender inequity in our society as a whole and in individual families. When the board denies female employees the salary increases they need just to keep up with the cost of living in this city, you have to do that in the full knowledge that by doing so, you're perpetuating the pay gap between men and women. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Carolyn Baldwin-Tucker, a former employee of Metro Schools as an administrator, former council lady at large for Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County. The current proposed operating budget for the 2018-2019 fiscal year appears to be more centered on administrative restructuring than student learning and outcomes. With an increased request of $45 million over the previous budget, if student needs were the driving force behind the budget process, there would be no problem in finding the $7.5 million needed. The proposal to cut the school lunch program for students in need of that program pulls at the very fiber of teaching and learning. Hungry students are hindered in their learning processes, and teaching is also adversely affected. Questions. When was it known that there would be a deficit in the funding for the 2018-2019 school program? And as a result of that knowledge, were steps taken to cover the deficit in the form of possibly specific granting writing institutions and addressing the pending shortfalls through that process? If not, why not? Prior to the current decline in the number of economically disadvantaged students, according to the state report card for Metro, 3 years earlier, there was a marked decrease in the percentage of students reported as economically disadvantaged. Was there an effort to determine the cause for the drop of 22% in that 1 year? If not, Why not? Children should not be deprived of open access to the lunch program merely because they are zoned to a school that does not meet a quota. The need for children to have access to food should not come with the stipulation. Also, restructuring of direct services to children should be needs-based, data-driven, and research-sound. The major cuts to social workers and truancy itinerant specialists will have major negative effect upon children. While I understand that each person will be able to reapply for those positions, many of those will not reapply because they're seasoned employees, and we will be the lesser for it because we will have lost institutional knowledge and skill sets that have been forged over time. Social workers and truancy specialists have been actively involved in the lives of children and families. There is no money value that can be placed on that influence, encouragement, and support provided by those individuals. I respectfully request written answers to the aforestated questions, and I trust that as a board, you will reconsider the current proposal that is before you for the operating budget of 2018-2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker.
Good evening, Mrs. Shepard, Dr. Joseph, Ms. Spearing, members of the board. My name is Dr. Eric Huth. I'm president of the Metropolitan Nashville Education Association, 531 Fairground Court. I rise this evening to talk to you about a few things. The first thing I'd like to mention is that item number 5.2 on your agenda is the Memorandum of Understanding with Teachers. We began this process well over a year ago now, and unfortunately, we had some starts and stops, some issues related to scheduling, and then ultimately concerns on the part of the administration and the board that you were unable to fund some of the monetary issues that were in our proposed agreement. We met recently and determined that we would refer the monetary issues to the compensation committee, which the Memorandum of Understanding in part creates in order to move the process forward. So I encourage you to approve that agreement. The costs associated with the agreement itself are very little, but the needs that those cost items will continue to remain. If you continue to underfund teacher salaries and other employee salaries, as a matter of fact, as well, in the future, you'll continue to have a hard time filling all of your rank and file positions like classroom teachers and paraprofessionals. So I encourage you to look seriously at the compensation study that was presented to you a few weeks ago and to consider how we might move that forward in terms of a long-term plan to fund salaries for teachers, and do the same with support employees as well. Administrators apparently aren't quite as underfunded as the rest of us are, so I encourage you to look at teacher and support salaries. Additionally, I did want to mention that in the discussion last night, there was some discussion about stipend pay for working out of class. And I would encourage you to provide that same opportunity to teachers who work as assistant principals when there's an assistant principal out of the school, and to pay them a stipend as well. We did actually used to do that in this district, but that practice stopped about 10 years ago, I think. And to do the same for assistant principals when they fill in for principals. So if that's a practice that we want to begin, I think that's a practice that we should not just do at the top, but we should do throughout the school system. And again, I encourage you to look hard at finding a way to fund the cost of the 7 social workers that you cut out of the budget. Thank you very much.
We'll move on to our governance issues, our organization with our consent agenda. Ms. Spearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The consent agenda reads as follows. 1A, awarding of purchases and contracts. 1, Cambridge International with 3 contracts. 2, Catapult Learning, LLC. 3, Connecticut General Life Insurance Company, Cigna. 4, Nashville State Community College. 5, Youth Opportunity Investment, LLC. B, Special Course List for High School Electives. And C, Legal Settlement Claim C-33507 for $30,000. Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Can I get a second?
Second.
If we could use our iPads to vote, please. The consent agenda passes unanimously. Thank you. We will move on to a memorandum of understanding. Is that you, Dr. Joseph?
Sure. I will ask Deborah Story to come up to the podium.
Dr. Joseph and Board, I'm going to ask Sharon Patiller to come up. She was one of the management panelists on the collaborative conferencing panel, and she could provide more details.
Were there any specific questions that you had about the MNEA MOU?
Ms. Pierce?
Yes, thank you. Could you please go over the major changes? Was it just the items with fiscal impact?
Yes.
Okay. And I know I had requested about a month or so ago to be able to see side by side kind of the changes. I don't recall getting that, but regardless, so tell me what is the, I mean, there's nothing in here that I would disagree with. I'm just trying to, I think my main concern is wanting to know that all of teachers' voices are represented. And I had asked for the breakout of members. And so what was sent to me was that it's about 23% of eligible teachers, or teachers eligible to join the MNEA, are actually choosing to do so. So I want to know, in this process, when these things are considered and developed, are there teachers from the other 77% whose voices are included? Or is there a way to do that?
I can't answer that, but I think Eric may be able to answer how they include non-MNEA members' voices in the process.
Okay.
So with respect to the voices of teachers in the process, the way collaborative conferencing is set up in the law, there is an election that is held. And we held an election of the entire teaching force of Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools, and no other organization or unaffiliated is the third category that could be voted for, received 15% of the votes. So therefore, MNEA had all of the votes, and that's why we're the only organization representing teachers in this process. Other than that, I can tell you that we get feedback from members and non-members alike on a continuing basis. We very frequently get feedback from our representatives that comes from their colleagues who are not joiners. And if anyone wants to send me information by email, I've had some conversations, some meetings with Dr. Joseph where we did meetings across the district and have encouraged people to give us feedback on anything. And as a matter of fact, I have brought things forward from non-members to the administration after those meetings that were shared with me by email. Okay.
Additionally, Mary, as part of the process, management we represent the board, but we also represent the employees that we serve. And throughout the process, we're providing them with feedback. And it's a collaborative conversation. So we're sharing experiences or information that other non-MNEA teachers have shared with us, as well as them sharing information about the voice for their members.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Springs.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm excited about this, and I want to thank everybody who was involved from the beginning, including Dr. Huth, but also teachers like Amanda Kale and certainly Ms. Story and her team. I think we've got a real opportunity to kind of set a glide path for what employee relations look like going forward. With respect to the compensation issue, I just want to personally say I'm all with y'all. I'm all in, and I think this gets back to a bigger conversation that we've been having that's kind of my standard stump speech, which is we are a chronically underfunded school system, and that's not something that the school board can solve alone. We have partners in the mayor's office and at the council who are critical to this conversation. The state Supreme Court today said that there's going to be a mayor's election at the end of May, in 6 weeks from now. So I would encourage the teachers and the MNEA to start proactively communicating with the mayoral candidates tomorrow at 8 a.m. about the need for increased employee compensation. This is not going to be a short conversation. This is, but it hopefully won't be a long one. I think there's a way to get to a solution quickly, but we have to have a lot of teacher voice, and you all are superheroes. Your teacher voice matters more than anything else. So get active, get active. And we're right with you. So thank you, and thanks for everybody who worked on the process.
Any other comments or questions? I will entertain a motion to approve the MOU as presented to us at the last meeting. So moved. Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, any discussion, any further discussion on that? Okay, if we could use our iPads to vote. Thank you. That's not the right one. Wait, there's the wrong one. We need the one.
The title was wrong, but the motion is right. I'll update the.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm trusting you on this, Camille.
Should we clarify just verbally for the record what's going
Please.
on?
Yes.
So in the electronic voting system, the item that we're looking at on the screen and on our computers is not titled correctly. It's the title is regarding a resolution from a previous meeting, but just to verbally clarify that what we are voting on is to approve the memorandum of understanding for MNEA. And I know that, are you with legal? Okay, all right, so thank you. So is that good enough clarification for the record? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. Already read it once.
I'm not sure what's wrong with it. It's saving, but it's not showing.
Apparently we have technical difficulties, so we will revert to our old-fashioned way of voting with a show of hands. So if I could get a show of hands on the vote for the MNEA MOU. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Woo-hoo. All right, we will move on to reports, our organizations, and the director's report. Dr. Joseph.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ms. Shepard. So I am truly grateful to be working in a school system that is focused on both equity and excellence. You know, we just completed our State of School address, and I want to thank the community members and the board members that were able to attend this very important event. You know, it's important for us annually to communicate on our progress, and this year we had much to celebrate. Before I move into our presentation on English language performance within our school district, I'd like to just take a quick moment to share a video by a poet. And that poet's name is Clint Smith, and he gave a very profound TED Talk. And I think it's a message that Nashville needs to hear at this time as we work to be the fastest improving urban district in America. So if we can just go to our clip.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in a 1968 speech where he reflects upon the civil rights movement, states, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." As a teacher, I've internalized this message. Every day all around us, we see the consequences of silence manifest themselves in the form of discrimination, violence, genocide, and war. In the classroom, I challenge my students to explore the silences in their own lives through poetry. We work together to fill those spaces, to recognize them, to name them, to understand that they don't have to be sources of shame. In an effort to create a culture within my classroom where students feel safe sharing the intimacies of their own silences, I have 4 core principles posted on the board that sits in the front of my class, which every student signs at the beginning of the year. Read critically, write consciously, speak clearly, tell your truth. I find myself thinking a lot about that last point, tell your truth. And I realized that if I was going to ask my students to speak up, I was going to have to tell my truth and be honest with them about the times where I failed to do so. So I tell them that growing up as a kid in a Catholic family in New Orleans, during Lent, I was always taught that the most meaningful thing one could do was to give something up. Sacrifice something you typically indulge in to prove to God you understand his sanctity. I've given up soda, McDonald's, French fries, French kisses, and everything in between. But one year, I gave up speaking. Figured the most valuable thing I could sacrifice was my own voice, but it was like I hadn't realized that I had given that up a long time ago. I had spent so much of my life telling people the things they wanted to hear instead of the things they needed to. Told myself I wasn't meant to be anyone's conscience because I still had to figure out being my own, so sometimes I just wouldn't say anything, appeasing ignorance with my silence, unaware that validation doesn't need words to endorse its existence. When Christian was beat up for being gay, I put my hands in my pocket and walked with my head down as if I didn't even notice. Couldn't use my locker for weeks because the bolt on the lock reminded me of the one I had put on my lips when the homeless man on the corner looked at me with eyes up, merely searching for an affirmation that he was worth seeing. I was more concerned with touching the screen of my Apple than actually feeding him one. When the woman at the fundraising gala said, "I'm so proud of you. It must be so hard teaching those poor, unintelligent kids," I bit my lip because apparently we needed her money more than my students needed their dignity. We spend so much time listening to the things people are saying that we rarely pay attention to the things they don't. Silence is the residue of fear. It is feeling your flaws gut-wrench guillotine your tongue. It is the air retreating from your chest because it doesn't feel safe in your lungs. Silence is Rwandan genocide. Silence is Katrina. It is what you hear when there aren't enough body bags left. It is the sound after the noose is already tied. It is charring. It is chains. It is privilege. It is pain. There is no time to pick your battles when your battles have already picked you. I will not let silence wrap itself around my indecision. I will tell Christian that he is a lion, a sanctuary of bravery and brilliance. I will ask that homeless man what his name is and how his day was, because sometimes all people want to be is human. I will tell that woman that my students can talk about transcendentalism like their last name was Thoreau, and just because you watch one episode of The Wire doesn't mean you know anything about my kids. So this year, instead of giving something up, I will live every day as if there were a microphone tucked under my tongue, a stage on the underside of my inhibition. Because who has to have a soapbox when all you've ever needed is your voice. Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that statement that he made by Dr. King, which really said that in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And I commend this board for your advocacy for children over this past year. And I'd like to remind us of the power that we have to use our voices to stay focused on improving student outcomes for our children. You know, I have been in education for 22 years now, and I have consistently worked to use the power of my voice to simply get things right for kids. It's the reason from the moment that I entered this school district, the first place I visited on my official start was our public libraries, because I thought it was very important to call out the injustice that I saw with our children's literacy rates. Thus, we developed a clear and focused strategic plan, and I appreciate the board's passion, effort, and hard work in making that happen. And we began a multi-pronged strategy to create a sense of urgency around literacy instruction. In fact, in our first year together, I worked with an inherited budget and with inherited budget priorities. And I asked this board to do something that is very hard for folks to do. I simply asked, will you just trust me? And you can trust me because I had a track record of making things better for kids in every single job that I've had over the course of these past 22 years. I've greatly appreciated your trust as a collective board, and I promised you 22 months ago that I would not let you down. And this is why I was elated on March 28th, 22 months after I signed my contract with the Metro Nashville Public Schools on May 13th, 2016, that we were able to report the following. I shared that we should feel really good about improving the quality of our pre-K seats, working collaboratively with our mayor's office and our local partners. I said that we should feel good about challenging students to reach new academic heights through our intentional effort to increase rigor at all tiers of our schooling. We have doubled the number of students with plans to take advanced placement courses, international baccalaureate courses, and the Cambridge program. And we have expanded our advanced programming to our middle schools. I said we should feel good about our focus on equity because our sense for equity gave us the will to pay for testing fees for high school students to take industry certification courses. And these efforts have resulted in us doubling the number of students expected to take an industry course exam this year. And I said we also should feel good about our gifted and talented support in all our elementary and middle schools, because no longer is gifted instruction something that a select number of students receive. And now we search to address and support giftedness in all of our children. And we expect more from all of our kids. And we talked about the fact that the majority of MNPS students in grades 2 through 8 have made greater growth than the average of students nationally on the measures of academic progress in reading, because nationally, half of students exceed that growth. And we talked about specifically 56% of MNPS students exceeded national growth expectations, and 59% of students exceeded growth in mathematics. And the majority of MNPS students in every grade level exceeded the national average for growth in reading. And in math, MNPS students at every grade level, with the exception of 5th grade, exceeded the national growth expectations. We also talked about we saw above average academic growth with every student subgroup in every part of this city. So since May 13th, 2016, again, the day I had the honor and privilege to sign my contract, we have been 100% focused on working with a sense of urgency to raise the level of challenge that exists within this school district. I say because as a district, friends of education, and we have lots of them, have just been too silent about the fact that 3 out of 4 kids were not reading on grade level. And this is something that we are currently addressing at a clip faster than we had been doing in previous years. We had been silent about the fact that we have historically disproportionately suspended children, particularly African American children and Latino children, and we left many of them behind. It absolutely broke my heart recently to read the NPR report that shared that 1 in 7 children who grew up in North Nashville between the years of 1980 and 1986 could end up incarcerated on any given day in their 30s, the highest rate in the nation amongst high population zip codes. Now, we talked about it, but we didn't put any resources to actually addressing it. And I'm proud to be working with NOAA and with OASIS and with Judge Calloway and our staff to develop a comprehensive plan to address these issues like we are attacking our reading issues. You see, we're going to bring a team to Harvard this summer, like we did last year, to focus on our literacy issue. Our work last year at Harvard on literacy resulted in us developing a nationally recognized Blueprint 2025, which guides us and charges us to double the amount of students reading on grade level by 2025. We'd also been silent about the fact that some kids and some schools are excelling within our school district, while others did not have clear research-based plans to improve. Now, I thank you as a board for being courageous and bold leaders, and I thank the community members that are present here, and I thank the community members that are at home watching, and the community members that read the paper and watch the media, and I thank you all for holding us all accountable for the achievement of our children. You know, sometimes when we read these media pieces or we watch these media pieces, we don't always get the actual facts. But the good news is that the truth always comes out, and people are ultimately judged by their results. Our work is simply too important to continue to do business as usual, and our children are way too important for us to take our eyes off of the prize of improved achievement and college and career readiness for all of our kids. I encourage you as a board and the community not to sit silently, and don't allow any naysayers or any pessimists out there to keep us from moving forward when it's very clear that we are moving forward as a school district here in Metro Nashville Public Schools. I encourage us to use the power of our voice to continue to promote what's working in this great district, and also to use our voice to advocate for our children, particularly those children that have been historically marginalized, thrown into the corners of parts of American society, and ultimately imprisoned right here in Nashville more than any other place in the country. If we use our energy and our voice for good, we're going to continue to improve at a rate that we're improving at the present moment. And someday we'll look back on this day and smile, because it's going to be the day that we all remember as the day that the adults in Nashville actually got their act together and started taking care of our children. Now, as we discuss taking care of our children, our English language children are an example of children who need additional resources to accelerate their learning. That's why we're proud to have included an additional $2 million in our budget request for them. I'm going to turn the podium over to Dr. Monique Felder, who is our extraordinary Chief Academic Officer, Mr. Kevin Stacy, who is our exemplary Executive Director for the English Learner Office, and Miss Molly Stovall, who is our wonderful Director of the English Learning Office, and they're going to give us a presentation on the work that's happening with our English learners. Dr. Felder?
Thank you, Dr. Joseph, and good evening, members of the board. So as you all know, MNPS is a district that values, supports, and celebrates language diversity. So tonight, we're going to share critical data and information about our English language students. You should have 2 packets. One is a packet of all of the entire PowerPoint slide, and the other is a supplemental packet. So does everyone have both of these packets? Great. And you'll notice in the second packet, there is a capture sheet. So this is a place for you to capture your questions, your comments, because we'd like very much to proceed through the entire presentation before answering questions. However, if you have a burning one, we will certainly entertain that throughout the presentation. So, what are our outcomes for tonight? Well, there are 4. So by the end of this presentation, we will have reviewed recent district demographics to set a context for the rest of the presentation. You will have received an overview of data for English learners and limited English proficient students. We will have shared with you successes. And just as there are many successes, there are also some challenges that we face, but we are addressing those challenges, and we will share the strategies that we're using to address the challenges with regards to educating our English learners. So at this time, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Kevin Stacy, Executive Director for the Office of English Learners, and to Molly Stovall, who is the Director for the Office of English Language Learners.
It's great to be with you tonight and also to share about the English Learner Program and our passion, and also represent over 700 teachers that carry the banner for our English learners every day in the classroom, and that also appreciate the strengths that our English learners bring to this district through their diversity. So if you look at the slide, this represents our non-English language background student population, and this non-English language background represents all students in the district that speak another language other than English. So they can be in the English language program, English learner program, or they could be proficient. But as you will notice, also in Table 1 on page 3 in your supplemental packet is a reference to this as well. The top 5 languages have been consistently the top languages for over the last 5 years, which is Spanish, Arabic, Kurdish, Somali. If you'll note, one interesting language is Swahili. 2 years ago, it was 200, and now it is 389, almost 100% increase. So what that tells us is that our populations are changing. The district needs are continually looking at different populations with different needs within each cultural group. Language can sometimes be a deceiver of people in that there are various cultures represented within one language. It is our department's vision that every child be considered as we delve into the culture, the social, and the emotional impact on every child. The child then is able to hear instruction in relationship to the linguistic and academic needs for every student in our district, regardless of what country or language they speak. That leads us into our office vision. We, as the EO team, support English learners to make sure of these 5 attributes: social, emotional, cultural, linguistic, and academic needs. The first 3 really look at the heart of the child. In order to capture the mind, we must reach the heart, and that is through their social, emotional, and their cultural well-being. Making sure that we understand that every child is appreciated because of their diversity and because of their strengths that they bring to this district of ours. If you'll look at the numbers, you will see that, and I'll explain, active ELs are students who are participating in an English learner class. And we have 13,793 active English learners. As you go down the chart, we have transitional students. These are the students that were in an EL class but are proficient on the annual test, we call it Access, that we give every year. So we monitor those students for 4 years, and they would be Transitional 1 for the first year, Transitional 2 for the second year, Transitional 3 for the third, and then Transitional 4 for the fourth. When you look at the combined of active ELs and transitional students, we have a total population of 18,783, which is 23% of our student population.
So Kevin just shared a few things about the limited English proficient students, and
And when you think about limited English proficiency students, you are looking at two things. We're looking at the compliance for staffing and accountability. So first, let's take a look at compliance. According to TN State Policy 3.207, the district-wide EL programming staffing ratio is based on a 35 LEP student to 1 full-time EL teacher. For the staffing ratio, the LEP group includes active students plus transitional 1 and 2. So that's the one that's particularly related to staffing. The state changed the ratio from 1 to 40 to 1 to 35 over the past couple years. Over the past 3 years, the district added EL teachers annually in order to meet this new 1 to 35 ratio. Thank you. Our district is continuing to meet the 1 to 35 ratio through student-based budgeting. Schools are providing an EL weight in their budget for EL teachers. For next year, the weight has increased from 21%, which was 929 dollars per LEP student, to 24%, which is now $1,104 per student. Schools use this funding to allocate for full-time EL teachers to meet their required FTE count. Our office collaborates with the Finance Department and Human Resources to ensure that schools use this allocation correctly and meet their required count. As you can see from the chart, MNPS has seen a 7% growth in the student population that relates directly to the staffing compliance. This is why we are continuing to increase our EL teaching force to meet the state-required LEP ratio. So now let's look at accountability. This information refers to this LEP subgroup that includes active and transitional 1, 2, 3, and 4. Over the past year, this accountability subgroup of LEP has increased by 6%. Under ESSA, all students must participate in mandated testing. Including ELs in the assessment results ensures that children who are English learners attain English proficiency, develop high levels of academic attainment in English, and meet the same challenging state standards as their native-speaking peers. When you think about the students, we have our active English learners that Kevin described and transitional students. Transitional students do not receive EL services. They are out of the program. And these students are classified as transitional for 4 years. This is the first year that transitional 3 and 4 students are included for accountability. In the past, the LEP subgroup only included active English learners and transitional 1 and 2 students. We hope that including transitional 3 and 4 students will give our district more information about the effectiveness of our EL program on students after they exit. If you look in your handout and you look on pages 5 and 6, you can see the Tennessee ESSA updates. If you want to look at more information related to accountability for English learners and also accountability when it comes to recently arrived ELs.
Speaking of ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. Okay. The bar has been raised in regards to accountability. In the past, before ESSA, it was on the district. Now it is on every school that we make sure that every English learner is succeeding, with 10% of the report card being on the for the school will be related on the report card if there are 10 ELs in that school. So the measure and the bar has been set exceedingly high with the needed supports, especially more than ever for English learners in relationship to accountability. Access is the annual assessment given to English learners, and they are required to take this test every year to measure their language growth and proficiency. If you'll look at the chart at the top column, you'll notice that Tennessee has had 3 different English language proficiency assessments in the past 4 years. And each test change has had the accompanying changes in evaluation criteria. Starting in 2015, MNPS started with the Access Assessment, and this assessment has gone through a significant change over the past 3 years. The Access for ELs assessment exceeds the requirement for ESSA and is also used to measure not only, as I said, growth, but proficiency, not achievement. It is a standards-based curriculum referenced proficiency assessment to make sure that we're also assessing the social and academic English proficiency and their progress. It assesses the social language in regards to speaking, listening, reading, and writing. The results of the Access test helps the district in the following ways. Number one, it serves as one criterion to aid in determining when ELs have attained the language proficiency needed to meaningfully participate in the content classes without an ESL program support. The second thing, providing our district with information that will help us evaluate our own effectiveness and to make sure that we're doing what is needed in order to meet the needs of our English learners in the English language learner process. Then it also provides us valuable information for our teachers in understanding who our students are and where their proficiency is in relationship to the content when they're receiving English instruction. The left column represents the measurement criteria for English learners and the percentage of students exiting the EL program. Once a student exits the EL program, they have the breadth and depth of knowledge required to function alongside native English-speaking peers. In the last column, 2017 Access Assessment, you will notice that the growth changes are significant, and there is an asterisk to note the change. This change in data is due to the fact that the 2017 Access test was revised with the ELD standards and has a different scoring scale than the previous year's assessment, and the scoring criteria changed. The state has not defined the target for growth or exit rate for that year. In the 2017, the Access 2.0 assessed new ELD standards, and we are using that criteria. Regardless of these changes, however, scoring range and evaluation, MNPS EL performance has consistently exceeded the state in improvement scores.
So we want to share a quote from Jan Lanier. She's the director of EL for the Tennessee Department of Education. She said that the MNPS EL office has done in 3 years what we thought would take 5 years to complete. So let's discuss some of the successes that have helped us to perform and in making improvement and exiting our students. Our SIFE program was nationally recognized and awarded by the Novo Foundation, an award for innovation with our program. If you look in your packets, you'll see on page 7 a full description of the SIFE program, what students are eligible, and where the SIFE program is located. SIFE is a program for students from interrupted formal education. Students in this program typically have gaps in their education or not attended school at all. They are all a level 1 when it comes to English language proficiency, so at the beginning level of language proficiency. And we place students in the SIFE program that are going to need additional support prior to entering the regular EL program at their school. And we have 16 SIFE teachers that currently work in our program across 11 different sites across the district. Any student that needs to be in our SIFE program is eligible, and we transport them to the school that's closest to their home. When we look at our next success, we also were asked by the Council of Great City Schools and nationally recognized to participate in their professional development on the implementation of complex and compelling texts for ELs. Surveys and exit tickets from our teachers say that they really love our work. We have made 1,918 coaching visits since August 2017. We also have implemented a successful after-school program for 1,600 students and summer school for 1,100 students across the district. If you look at page 10 of your handout, you will see a description of the after-school programming and summer school programming, and you'll see the sites and other elements of the program. We've also worked to align the EL Office strategic plan with the district plan, reflecting on our students' achievement, demographics, processes, and perception of our program. And finally, we've really worked to streamline our communication with schools, teachers, and principals by developing an action plan for every school in MNPS. We work with the principal to develop what their teachers need, what professional development they need at their school specifically. We also send out bi-weekly memos to teachers and leaders about their EL programs.
We also have our challenges, and we're not going to lay down on the job. We're not going to rest until we make sure that every child is successful. And that's why we're here to share a passion, but to join hands together to ensure that we work together to make sure that we carry the banner for our English learners in this district. I want to read a quote. Dr. Lily Wong Fillmore was a professor at Berkeley. Her husband was a famous linguist, Charles Fillmore, and is also somewhat the godmother of the Council of Great City Schools for English language learners. She states, "Herein lies a major problem for English learners and language minority students. One of the biggest roadblocks to learning is that they never get a chance to work with complex text." And so a lot of times our English learners, we want to make sure that they are hearing complex text and academic language, because if they don't hear it, if they're not exposed to it, they can't accomplish it. So our ELD curriculum and supports have aligned to the district's 3 core actions: text, task, and talk, to make sure that we are providing the rigor that is needed for our English learners. Assessments and standards continue to change in relationship to difficulty to assess the effectiveness of current supports. However, when we ensure that our students are getting the best in regards to complex text, then we can be successful. Another limited a challenge is our limited staff to support 787 teachers. We currently have 16 coaches, and that is a very difficult, we've heard the amount of coaching visits, but we absolutely could do a whole lot more coaching visits with a lot more teachers. Building capacity in schools is also a challenge, in the need for content teachers to be trained in EL strategies and also embed ELD content in every professional development. As our EL teaching force continues to grow each year, we need to make sure that we continue also to recruit the best and retain our greatest EL teachers in our district. How are we addressing these challenges? First of all, we have the greatest teachers. Our teachers said about the training that they received. Something I like about our ELPLC is our culture of sharing and growing together. I learn something new each time. Also learning new strategies or strengthening existing strategies to yield more success for our students. Our teachers is our #1 front line in relationship to meeting and addressing the needs of English learners. So also with that, we want to make sure that we provide them with the absolute best professional development that we possibly can to ensure that they have what they need when they're teaching our students. We rolled out a high-quality instructional practices to all of our full-time EL teachers on the district-wide professional development day at the beginning of the school year. We must execute all the elements of high-quality instruction, and this includes grade-level tasks, complex and compelling text, contextualized language development, strategic assessments, making sure that our students are speaking everyday academic conversations, a balance of reading, writing, listening, and speaking in their lessons, and that we also have a culture in our classrooms that our students bring an assets orientation to the classroom, that they bring strengths and guard against any mentality that they are a deficit. And we also want to ensure that we are culturally responsive in all that we do in the district, in our instruction. We have participated in the Council of Great City Schools with their PD rollout and have been asked actually to present on our rollout to the ELD directors across the nation in regards to how we were doing it. We have one of the greatest summer ELD PDs that you can imagine, with leading experts such as the authors of Co-Teaching with ELs, Dove and Hoggensfeld, Dr. Ortiz, which is a specialist in EL and special education. Rosenthal is one of the leading experts in immigration law in Washington, D.C., and Dr. Fillmore, as I mentioned before. And if you've ever heard anything about EL, you know about Dr. Cummings, who is the grandfather of EL in writing and research. EL strategies in the content class, we want to make sure that we embed EL strategies in all that we say and do in the district, because every teacher is going to have an EL child somewhere down the line, most likely, in this district. We have also initiated professional learning communities. This is the action research of the professional development. We've established 47 school-level PLCs around the HQIs, and we are now working with Vanderbilt with a district PLC and how that we use complex text with our English learners and making sure that it's effective. And we have after-school tutoring PLCs, SIFE PLCs, model teacher PLCs for the districts as well. One of the challenges, one of the successes, but also one of the challenges is to make sure that the programs that we have are quality, such as our extended learning. After School Reading Club, we have 23 sites with 1,260 students after school that meet to focus on literacy, and that includes parent workshops, transportation, and dinner, and 5 high school sites offering course recovery. Summer School, 11 sites, 1,100 students for 6 weeks last year, with a focus on literacy and math, and that included library access, transportation, field trips, breakfast, and lunch. An opportunity for 100 high school students to earn 2 credits over the summer for English learners. We also have innovation in regards to our models so that our schools can choose and make sure that we're not just meeting compliance, but we're exceeding compliance from the state, but offering our children the best English language learner service that they can possibly have in relationship to the needs that they have. And that concludes our presentation.
Great job. So I will entertain questions from my colleagues.
I feel like ooh, I feel like the kid from Welcome Back, Kotter. Remember that guy? I just dated myself. Yeah, exactly. I'm blown away, you guys, Kevin and Molly and the whole team. 4 years ago, when the board first challenged you guys to develop, a true EL innovation strategy, around that time, we were having problems just kind of articulating, what we were doing at the time. And now, you've come so far. I've got 2 questions. And the first one is around professional development. So I'd like to hear an example of what a high-quality PD session looks like. And then park that for a minute. While I ask the second question, which is, in the EL strategy that you guys delivered to the board after we first issued the challenge in 2014, there was a part of it that dealt with take-home technology as a way to extend the learning day. And I know that part of it may not have necessarily been fully fulfilled for budget reasons and other things, but I'd love to hear about the kind of plans to use technology in off hours, if that still exists. And if it doesn't, that's fine. But just generally speaking, terrific work.
Thank you. So I'll address the technology, and then I'll have Molly, do you feel comfortable, or we can do... So the technology, we actually, during that year, provided, it was over 600, I think, teachers at that time, around 5 laptops per classroom. And I'd have to go back and get the numbers if you want the specific, but we're talking about approximate. And that allowed for students to use the programming that we had for Imagine Learning and Achieve 3000 for secondary. And they're actually able to go home with this technology, but not the computers. But they're able to take the technology home and work with that program outside in their home area as well. We also, in regards to after school, we offer a LEAF program, Linking, Educating, and Advancing Families, on Wednesday night at Wright Middle School, in which also has a component of getting students to the program to help them with their coursework while educating their parents on English learner services as well. So there is an extension of that we sometimes use technology within that as well. So Molly, if you want to, did that?
Yeah, just to follow up on technology, if we're not actually giving them hardware to take home, is it possible to, do some research and see if there is a way to do it on one of these, because everybody's got one of these, and would love to know the answer to that at future date.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay, so in reference to professional development, I was writing it down. I captured both questions. So when I think about high-quality PD and what our team really strives to do is, first of all, we really have to align with the district's messaging in all of the content areas. And so we want to make sure we are giving the same message in any PD or coaching experience that a teacher has. So then we look at what are those best practices that we're asking teachers to implement in their classrooms, and that's what we do as presenters. So we are stating objectives, we're referring back to objectives, we're doing grouping structures, we are assessing students along the way. So we want to make sure that we're modeling all of those practices within our professional development. Something that we really have looked at over the last couple of years would be thinking about PD outside of the normal way of sit and get. So we looked at some of the learning forward work around taking PD to PLCs. So we are really transparent with teachers that this is the input that you're getting. You're getting this half day, you're getting this full day of professional learning, but there will be a follow-up. And the follow-up is going to be at your school level with a PLC. If you don't have a PLC that's EL related at your school, then we have district ones for you to attend. When they come back from a PD, they bring back evidence of the work that they've been doing in their classrooms. So how have I taken my learning, implemented it, and what does that look like in my classroom practice? What does that look like for my students? And they share and talk about that. So it's really important for us to have not only the sit and get traditional PD that's focused on both what that looks like in implementation, followed up by PLCs. And we found that with the PD input and then also follow-up PLCs, teachers are really liking it because they can see what it looks like in practice. They can come back with questions, and they're actually thinking, okay, I'm seeing how this works along the way. So that's a big picture of how we design it.
If I could just add the coaching part. So if you could speak to that, because that's a critical part of professional development. We know that the workshop model doesn't always work best. It's sometimes referred to as a drive-by model of professional development. So the 16 coaches that are in the schools are leveraged to, after perhaps training is provided, to then give them feedback and coach them on what they've learned to better support them with implementation.
So absolutely. I think when we look at the way our coaches have grown and we've really studied what adult learning looks like, we've looked at there's an input where you're learning, there's a trial period where you're implementing the practice and you need feedback from a coach, and then there's where you kind of take it on your own and you implement. So after professional development, part of our exit ticket process is for them to say, where am I working? What kind of feedback do I need? And so the coach then comes in and works with those teachers specifically on what they need in regards to implementation. The goal, though, for our district level ELD coaches is to build capacity at the school, because there are 700 EL teachers and more next year. We have thousands of content teachers. So the coaches have to work with that EL teacher team as to how can we build capacity? How can we share this knowledge with content teachers? They also have to work with the LTDS. How can we give you these pieces so that you can start embedding this in your coaching work? So our coaches do individual follow-ups with teachers, those observations, modeling lessons, providing feedback, but they're also working with those other parts to make sure that everybody is spreading the same information and also working on embedding those structures. So we're really working to build capacity at this point with our instructional coaches.
That's awesome. And just for the viewing audience at home, we got a lot of alphabet soup in the school system. So yes. PD stands for professional development. PLCs are professional learning communities. And that sounds terrific. I just want to give before I yield the floor to other colleagues, I just want to give a shout out to my friend Brittany Walker, who's a EL teacher at Paragon Mills Elementary School. The reason I asked the question about PD is I observed one of Brittany's classes not too long ago, and just reading a story, I mean, she throws her whole body, into the work in order, it's almost kind of sign language to help them understand what they're seeing in the book and help them understand what they're seeing in the written word. So I think it's amazing to watch that kind of innovation, in a live setting. So thank you for the update.
Spirit.
I just want to echo my colleague Will Pinkston's enthusiasm. This is so exciting, and I know that Kevin, you and Molly have received kudos from the Council of Great City Schools. You've received awards, and it's admirable that you have done the work in 3 years that they expected to take 5 years. So that's wonderful. I also love the fact that you've got a very successful summer program and after-school program. The PD, is that mostly through the 16 coaches? Okay.
Yes, that is mostly through our 16 coaches.
You don't have to outsource any of that.
We outsource it. I'm sorry, I got to forget to speak in this microphone. When we outsource, it's through making sure that our coaches are getting the training that they need in order to get into the schools in relationship to that. We have used Thinking Maps is one organization that we have built capacity to train and trainers in relationship to go back to their schools and build trainings within their own communities at their schools.
And thank you. How you have 16 coaches now, and this is a challenge, as you've noted. How many do you need? How many additional coaches do you need?
Oh, man, that's like opening up a Christmas, I could just really go wild with this.
Ask for what you need.
All right. It is Christmas.
We want to hear.
I could see us, and looking at our high schools. So when we're looking at English learners, we have really two sets. We have the ones that come in at the elementary school, but also we have new ones that are coming in new to the language at the high school level. And I would love to see more supports at the high school level, working with content teachers and EO teachers and team. And I would love to see, ideally, I would love to see an ELD coach at every school that had at least 20% EL.
And how many would that be?
I'd have to get back with you on that.
Okay.
Let us know.
That's a lot.
Because I think if you think about the number of schools that some of our coaches are working with right now, we have coaches that work with 30 schools. So and that's really challenging. We have 3 coaches that work.
They're low incident numbers at the schools.
So between 2 and 30 is kind of the range. And so if it's a very high incident school, the coach has 2, but we have others that are really doing a lot more. So that's challenging to build that capacity when you have that many schools.
And the reason for this, because a lot of times we have to ensure that the linguistic piece and the achievement piece go hand in hand. Because if you don't understand what a child is going through in relationship to learning a language, some languages have, for example, I a Coke buy, instead of saying I buy a Coke. So we have to understand the linguistic distance between English and their language. And English language teachers, English learner teachers, help us in relationship to ensuring that that linguistic piece is met as well as the achievement piece is met as well. In parity.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to piggyback off of my friend, Mr. Pinkston, and say I'm asking for a friend. Tell me what SIFE means, because I can never remember that.
Students with interrupted formal education.
Thank you. Ms. Punter.
Thank you. This is really, really exciting news. When I came onto the board about 4 years ago, one of our greatest challenges was trying to figure out how we were going to educate our English language learners. And to hear that over the past 3 years we've made this much progress is really astounding. So I really want to thank you guys. I have a vision. We have an early college that's going to be opening in my district, Antioch, Cambridge area. And the goal is to be able to bring an exemplary program. They have one in New York that offers that type of program, but this program has been proven to be very good for English language learners. So I'm hoping that our program can surpass theirs and we can be the model for that type of program, but alongside the type of work that you're doing. So thank you for giving us hope in that area. Thank you so much.
Ms. Pierce.
Thank you so much. I do agree. This is such a different presentation than I remember hearing 4 years ago. So I appreciate all the hard work you've done. I do have a couple of questions. On the summer school program, how are those students identified and selected?
The program is designed for students that are at the beginning levels of English language proficiency. So we work with the research and assessment department to identify students that are at WIDA access levels 1 and 2, and those students are invited to participate in the program.
And they can be any age range?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So K through 12. If they're at the high school level, they are in a language-rich program, but they're also offering 2 credits. So often our students that are at the lower proficiency levels, like Kevin said, are coming in later in their high school career. And so getting high school credits is always very important for them. So they are gaining credits while learning language over the summer.
Okay, and I apologize if you already answered that. I was trying to take a lot of notes and figure out acronyms as well. The other thing that I think I heard is that only active EL students receive services. So the limited English proficiency and transitional students, what does their support look like?
So their support for when they're in transition, once a student exits based on the access test, and they have to have, at this point, a 4.2, and this on a 6-point scale, in literacy, and also as a composite with their reading, writing, listening, and speaking, they exit the program and begin their transitional service. So this 4 years of monitoring is where we ensure that they're doing okay. And so there's reports that are given to our office quarterly on how well they're doing. If they're not doing well, then they can go back into the English learner service during this 4-year time. Now, it doesn't say that once they reach after the 4th year, it's a little bit more complicated to put them back in English learner. Then we start an S-team process and make sure that there's a group of teachers around, that can identify that it's language and not a challenging skill that they're deficit in.
Okay, because I was just curious to know, I don't recall you saying that was a challenge in terms of continuing to provide supports, because I do know, like at my son's school, Valor, they tend to give services to transitional students, and once, for longer, extended amounts of time. And so just did not know if that is something, as we look at the budget process, as you figure out how the schools will use their student-based budgeting to support EL, is that a challenge that you're looking at?
One of the challenges in regards to helping with transitional students is what we mentioned about embedding professional development, EL strategies in all professional development for all content teachers. That is a top-down approach. Bottom-up approach would be looking at making sure that our English learner teachers are experts in their fields. But the top-down approach would be looking at and ensuring that our content teachers understand English learners and are able to meet their needs at a differentiated level within the classroom without sacrificing the standard.
And then one more question, I'm sorry. How is it going with the Newcomer Academy at STEM? Is that still an active?
Molly led a program this year and looking at some innovative strategies.
So we work with Kristen whenever we need to. She's got some great things going on. We supply her with a list of students, and I don't know exactly what happens after that, but they do get those students that would benefit from that program, and we continue to collaborate with them. They're really great to work with.
Oh, okay, I just hadn't heard an update on that in a while. Okay, thank you so much.
Dr. Brandon.
Yes, I want to congratulate you on the phenomenal progress that you've made. I go back to when I was a principal and we were a pilot school. We had indication that we would have 11 students that year that were EL students, and we ended up with 120. And so without training of teachers, and we did what we could and what we needed to do for students. But your work with the Council of Great City Schools I was in on the beginning of that, and now we're getting accolades for your progress, so congratulations.
What was that, Dr. B?
Napier.
Oh, wow. Very good. Anybody else with any questions and/or comments?
No comment, no question.
Great report. Thank you so much. Awesome. So I have a very small board chair report, and believe it or not, it goes in line with the video that we saw tonight, the TED Talks video that we saw tonight, which I thought was very telling. Last Friday, I had the opportunity to attend an excellent workshop conducted by Dr. William Parrott entitled Turning High Poverty Schools into High-Performing Schools. The attendees were given the book that he co-authored. I almost bought that book before the session. I'm glad I didn't. It was an excellent experience. We took deep dives into understanding poverty and how it affects the lives of our students and administrators. We learned about various schools in various states and how their students excel despite being a high-poverty school. We learned about the various tactics that teachers at the high-poverty and performance schools employ to help their students succeed. One high school teacher who has approximately 150 students promises his students at the beginning of each year he will not assign homework until he has learned each student's name in each class, making each student feel special and wanted. Now, he did say that toward the end of that 2 weeks, some of the kids started trying to change their name, but he called them out on it. He knew what their names were. One middle school principal has her teachers complete a whiteboard with every student's name in each class. Teachers not only have to know the name and the face that goes with that student's name, they need to also learn eventually their academic status, and they need to learn something personal about each student so that each student, as they go into that classroom, knows that they are special and that they want to be in that classroom. The moderator said that he was a principal one time. He's always been out west. I think he said he was in Idaho, and they put him in this alternative school, which was a redone gas station, and it was at the bottom of this mountain, and it had block floors and everything. And he said at the very top of the hill was a beautiful, brand new, state-of-the-art high school. And he had this male student who was a senior, and he said, "Why do you want to be in this school? Why don't you want to be in that school where it's just beautiful, state of the art, they have great athletic facilities?" And he said, "You know my name here. They didn't know my name there," which was very telling. And so we can make a difference in our children's classrooms. And as we as a district are advocating for SEL for our students, and we need to remember that there are many ways to make a difference in our students' lives, and these are the easy ways. I say easy. My memory is not as well as it used to be, but I think each and every teacher would be up to that challenge of learning their students by name and face and other things. So that concludes my report. Thank you for listening. And that being said, wait, one more thing before we adjourn. We will take a 5 or 10-minute break, and then we'll come back for the public hearing on the budget. Ms. Buggs?
Be there no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Thais, let's change.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.